So welcome to this webinar on Autodesk Data Exchange for IFC. I'm very much looking forward to this session. I hope everyone read the fine print that it's not just a webinar, but also a feedback session. So I really hope you do have some feedback for us and that you will be active. So I'm really looking forward to hear your feedback and also to show you what we have been working on so far. And just to give you a very quick summary, a data exchange is basically a way to share granular subsets of data through the ACC between the different systems. And I often like to call it the interoperability reimagined, because it is a new way of interoperability that gives us a much more flexible way of working with data. And why are we doing this? If you think about the struggles we face today on a daily basis, it is often so that we need to first see which file format can we share with the other party. Usually it is the IFC, which is why we are here today. But then again, you have the export options, and then you don't know what does the other side need. Do I need to export everything? And then the IFC files get very big, and then someone sends you a new version of that file, and maybe you miss it because it's not in the same repository and so on. So the question which we ask ourselves is basically, what if the data exchange was as seamless as sharing a photo, with someone on your phone, with sending someone a photo through the WhatsApp, or sending a package through FedEx, or paying through PayPal. So really something, that does not require an extensive training because it is easy to use and everyone is able to work with it quite intuitively. So when we talk about a data exchange, we often refer to it like sharing a subset of data. As we will see in the live demo, of course, you are able also to share the whole file, the whole model, the whole IFC, for example, in this case, but you can also share and update subsets of data, which is actually what it is meant for. And once you have created a data exchange, you are able to load it and also to update it with the data connectors, which we will talk about in a moment. And after that, you are able to use the data exchanges for coordination, for documentation, and of course, for dashboarding in Power BI, for example. So how do you do that? We have our pre-built connectors, which basically serve as plugins for your software. Or if you are a developer, you are also able to access the data exchanges through the GraphQL API or also through our .NET SDK. Today, we will talk only about the connectors, and in the first line, of course, about the IFC connector, but I just want to give you a quick overview of which connectors do we have today. So we have the so-called cloud connectors, which are available on the ACC. You don't need to download anything to use these. They are just there. So it means you can use Docs to view data exchanges, or also to create data exchanges from the Revit files and also from the IFC files as part of our IFC data exchange beta. Then you can also use the Microsoft Power Automate on ACC. And then we have the connectors, which basically serve as software plugins, which you need to download. And we have the GA connectors, which are the generally available connectors, which you can download through the apps.autodesk.com, so the App Store. And these are the Microsoft Power BI and the Revit connectors. And very soon we will also be adding Inventor, Rhino, and Tekla connectors as GA connectors. Currently, these are available only as beta. Talking about the beta connectors, you can find these, which you see on the right, through the feedback community. So you will find the links to the feedback community on the App Store if you search for them, but you will need to go to the feedback community in order to download them or in order to see how to use the IFC connector. Now, to give you an overview of how to create data exchanges from IFC, we will also have a live look on this in a moment, but just to show you a quick video, basically you can upload an IFC file and then you are able to access the data exchange for IFC through this tab you see on the left, and basically to filter down your IFC. We recommend filtering it down simply so that you are able to access only or to share only the data which you really want and need to share. And then you simply hit create a data exchange, and the data exchange is created in this case and stored on the ACC. You're able to view it just like any other file. And as you can see here, we will also update the data exchange every time you upload a new version of the IFC. Now you can load these data exchanges, for example, Revit, but also to any other software that has a data exchange connector. And here you are basically able to use this data exchange as a reference, which behaves slightly different than a linked file because it is really stored inside of the Revit file. And you are able to use the data that comes through the data exchange in the Revit schedules, or also, for example, to load it into the Power BI environment and create dashboards, which you can then share with others or use simply to analyze your data. So this was like a quick run through through the capabilities of a data exchange for IFC or data exchange in general. I can see that there are some questions in the chat already. We will have a look at them in a moment. It's about joining the beta. I have also we have simplified the process a little bit because I know it was slightly complicated. So I also created a video for this, so you can see basically how you can join it now if you have not joined so far. So you will need to go to feedback.autodesk.com. So you can simply register, as you can see here, and then say, okay, I want to provide feedback, and this is something that actually all of you can do. And the data exchange feedback community is one that is available to everyone. So you are just able to go here and join the data exchange connectors community. And once you click on this item, and when you proceed, of course, you need to accept the agreement because this is a beta and everything we share through the beta is tied to specific agreements, and you should not use it for production workflows and so on. And we have now added a direct link to the Microsoft form where you are able to submit your ACC project ID. The reason why we need your project ID is that we need to slightly change something in the background of the ACC project so that you are able to use this beta functionality. And that means that we need your ID of a newly created project. So ideally, please create a new project and then go to the browser and simply copy this long number, submit it, and you should receive a confirmation email within 1 day. Then you can start uploading the IFC files and also using this functionality. What I'm also setting up for everyone who says, okay, I would like to try this out, but I don't have the possibility to create an IFC project for this, or I don't have the time, I just want to see how this works. I am setting up a data exchange sandbox, which is basically an ACC project, which you can join, which everyone can join. I have a Microsoft Forms here where you simply need to submit your email address that you are using to log in into the ACC. You don't need a license or anything, just submit your email and I will add you to the project. And there you will find some demo files, some IFC files and data exchanges created from these IFC files. And I will also be adding some Revit files and also some other formats and their data exchanges so that you are able to load them, for example, through the Power BI connector or through the Revit connector, and simply try them out without the need to create your own project or the need to upload your own IFC files. Once you have uploaded it, so basically, let me just quickly show you how that works before we head over to the questions. So once you have the IFC file, like for example here, and you have the beta activated on the project, then you will see this data exchange link here on the left side. As we have seen in the video before, you are able to click on it, and as mentioned, you can then ideally you will go here and not say select all classes, so you could do that. But ideally, you would really go through the list and think of, okay, what does the other side need? And the great thing is that you see when you, for example, click on the columns, you will see the columns highlighted. And then you can do the same with all the other IFC classes in this case. So we can add the slabs and the walls, and you can always see the preview when you hover over the classes. And by doing that, we can then also assemble a data exchange that only includes the elements which you want to share or which you want to show to load in on the other side with the connector. Then you also have the access to the types, so the IFC predefined type. You also have access to the names, so we could also filter, for example, only specific walls which have a specific name, or you could even go ahead and edit the filters. We are about to clean these up, so at the moment you will see a lot of these IFC relationship entities in the background, but you can also search, for example, for any words and then find the p-sets and the properties which you would like to use and to add to your filters here so that you are able to filter them. So for example, if your elements have a long name, then you can also add that one, and then it will be visible here as well. And once you have finished the selection, you can simply say create exchange. Sometimes you will see the message here that you have too many elements selected. This is just, let me maybe show you that. We would just go ahead and say select all. We will select all, and if we select everything, because this project has really many elements, you will get a warning that this is a large number of objects. Simply means that it may open more slowly in a viewer. So ideally, this is why we say please use a subset of data which you really need. But if you are, if you really need to share everything, you can still try this, and I will create this one, and you will see that it will be created. It might only load slower in specific connectors like the Power BI viewer or also in the Revit connector. And as you can see here, the data exchanges which you create are stored in the same folder. In this case, you could of course also select a different folder, and they have this other kind of an icon. We often get a question is that the data exchange creation did not work because it has 0 bytes. Please note this is not the case. As we mentioned at the beginning, so I will open this data exchange, and despite it's having only 0 bytes, you will be able to access it in the viewer to see it. So as you see, it is not empty. The reason why it is showing the 0 bytes is simply that it is not a file. It is granular data, and what you see here is basically like the container for this data, but it's not a file format as such. So this is quickly from my side. Now let me have a look at the question. I can see that Rakesh is also here. Thanks, Rakesh, for supporting with the questions and answers. You can absolutely also feel free to unmute and speak. And in the meanwhile, we will go through the questions here. So when loading into Revit, which coordinate system will be used? I think that's something that Rakesh already replied to, and he also shared a link in the chat. So when we are creating a data exchange, we always use the actual origin of the file. So when we create data exchanges from Revit, we will use the Revit internal. And when we create data exchanges from IFC, as you know, when we create IFC from any software, we are able to select, the coordinate base. So if you then select the project base point when exporting the IFC, then that will be the origin of the IFC file, and that is also the origin that will be used for the data exchange. And we do not support the shared coordinates yet, but that is something that we are also actively looking into. What you can do when loading data exchanges in Revit, and for that, maybe let me just create a new project. Okay. And then when we load a data exchange, you will see that we have the options, basically where this data exchange will be linked to in Revit. And we are working on adding this functionality also to the other connectors. So basically, if we go to the Collaborate tab, where you will find the Revit connector, and then simply to Data Exchange, load a data exchange, and then navigate to a project where we have a data exchange stored. So we will simply take any, then you are able to preview the file here in the connector, or also to select here the advanced load. And here you will then see the options to where to load the data exchange. So you can load it at the Revit origin, at the project base point, survey point, or at specific coordinates, which you could use to overcome the current limitation that we are not able to specify the coordinate system when creating the data exchange. So there is also a question when it will be officially public and not a beta. We can't say that yet, unfortunately. However, we rely on your feedback. So this is why we have this session today, and why we would love to continue the conversation with you and hearing from you, hearing about your feedback, and hearing about what you would require for this to be really fully functional, so that we are able to release it as a GA connector, which is a generally available connector to be used on the production. Which IFC version do we support? So we support all currently official IFC versions. So we support 2x3, IFC 4, and IFC 4.3. And we have some great feedback here. I have extensively tested the data exchange process, and I am optimistic about it. Thanks for that. Performance for the same file, the order is traditional IFC, IFC for data exchange, and then the coordination model is the best. Yeah, it really always depends on your use case and what you're trying to achieve. And there are also many opportunities with more templates for Power App automations and more extensive possibilities. Currently, there are some basic workflows. I wish that we would get much more advanced workflows. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about advanced workflows, I think it would be great to hear more details about what kind of advanced workflows you are looking for. So For example, oftentimes we hear about model coordination. So if you would like to use data exchanges in the model coordination on ACC, please reach out to us, provide the feedback, and it will help us also prioritize these topics. Which versions of Revit is the data exchange supported? So we currently have the connectors for 2023 until 2026. However, the 2023 connector is not developed any further. So if you are looking for a GA connector, a generally available connector, which is not a technical preview, then it starts with Revit 2024. And another thing about data exchanges, and another question we often hear, is that basically when you load a data exchange, it does not matter where it comes from. So if you have a data exchange that comes from Revit 2026 and you want to load it into Revit 2024, it works just fine, because data exchange is really just like a neutral subset of granular data stored on ACC, and it doesn't care about the Revit file format and so on. Is there a plan to add a Vectorworks connector? That's a great question. So currently, I've shown you which connectors we have on our roadmap and what we are currently working on. So basically, this is the current plan. And for this year, we are not intending to publish new connectors, but more to work on the ones on the right side, and also on getting these three ones, the Inventor, Rhino, and Tekla, to GA. However, we do have a public roadmap, so I will also share the link to our link collection. So if you use this link, you can get a lot of great links and resources around data exchange, and among them also to the APS website. So let me show you where to find our official roadmap. So if you go to aps.autodesk.com, and then simply go to Solutions and Data Exchange, something was restructured here. Then you can scroll down. You can find here a lot of interesting information about data exchange, obviously, and also our video tutorials. By the way, we have some really nice tutorials for getting started, the implementation, and also the public roadmap. And if you go to the public roadmap, then we also have the feature ideas where you are welcome to submit also your own ideas, or for features or for new connectors, and you are also able to vote. So please use this functionality. For now, we are, as mentioned, focusing on maturing the connectors we have, but we are also developing the .NET SDK at the same time. And our goal is basically to enable also third parties, and to enable anyone out there who has developers in-house or who is developing apps to use the SDK to build their own connectors. So I know some third parties have already been having a look at some connectors and exploring this option, and that is currently a way where you say, okay, if you would like, I don't know, a specific software vendor to have a data exchange connector, and that connector is not listed on our roadmap, then you could also reach out to them and ask them if they would be interested in developing a data exchange connector at this point. So Alex says, I have managed to create the IFC exchange, opened it in Power BI using the Autodesk Data Connector Reading, and created a dashboard. However, am I able to stream the data into other places like Excel and anything else which can query an API? So with Power BI, you are able to publish the dashboard through the Microsoft services, or also to integrate it on ACC in the Insights as a dashboard. If you want to query the data through the API, so I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. I will attempt an answer, and feel free to correct me or to also to unmute yourself and we can start a discussion. If you want to query the data, you would ideally use the GraphQL API to directly query the data exchange. So basically, as we saw before on our landing page, you can also find the GraphQL documentation. So let's go quicker. And here you are able to access the GraphQL API. It is also a beta, so you will need to sign in, but then you will find the exact documentation as well for how to use the GraphQL API. And there was also a training a while ago where you should be able to access the recordings. I will look for these recordings. I think it was last month or 2 months ago. So I will look for that recording and share it with anyone interested or in follow-up email on this webinar. There are some more questions around workflows. Since Autodesk Data Exchange doesn't support Revit 2021, I'm currently limited to creating exchanges via IFC on ACC. Is there any alternative method or workaround you would recommend to bypass this limitation? So not really. I mean, if you have Revit 2021 files, you could, the only other thing that comes into my mind would be maybe using ACC, a dedicated ACC project to upgrade the Revit files into a newer IFC version, Revit version, sorry, and then create data exchanges from ACC. So for Revit files, you can also create data exchanges through ACC. So we have seen how to do that for IFC files. And now let me open a Revit file. So for example, this is a Revit file. It needs to be a Revit file 2024 or newer. So you will need to upload the 2021 files, and then you can use the ACC functionality to create a data exchange out of it, to create a new version, to upgrade the Revit version to a 2024 or newer. And then you can use this functionality here to create a data exchange. Please note it is in a different place because for Revit files, we don't filter the elements yet, but we are only able to access the views. And it means that if I select a specific view, for example, if I now select structure only L0, a parking, and create a data exchange out of it, then I will only receive the elements which I see here in the viewer and which have been defined as visible in the Revit file. So that is the only workaround that I would recommend you eventually, because it would avoid the exporting of the IFC file from Revit, and you could do everything on ACC. If you have any more questions about that, Uno, feel free to reach out, and then we can also have a closer look at that or a more detailed discussion. When creating a data exchange, is it possible to exclude specific internal parameters? That's a great question. This is something that we definitely have on our mind. So currently, when we create subsets of data, we basically select only the elements we want to have in the data exchange, but they include all the parameters that are attached to these elements. In the future, we definitely aim to give you the ability to also select the parameters or the properties which you want to share in the data exchange. Today, unfortunately, it is not possible yet, but we will keep you posted on that. If I manually select elements in a data exchange created from an IFC file, will those selections persist and automatically reflect changes when a new version of the IFC is uploaded? So basically, yes. you will be able to, let me see, we did it, I think I have it here. As you can see here we have a version 2 of a IFC file, and we have the structural data exchanges which I have created out of it, and they have been automatically updated. So while I'm talking, maybe I can, I think this is my version 2, so I will simply upload it for you, so you will see that it automatically triggers the update. But no, this is a structural file and I don't have that one created yet. So let me see. Where could we simulate that? So this one has already been updated. So let me just quickly create a data exchange and then we will update it. And then also you will see in Revit or in any other connector where you have the data exchange loaded, you will see the option. So I will make it simple and I will just pick the walls, a data exchange, and say this is my structure walls, and create a data exchange. I'm creating it in the same folder. Since it's a very small data exchange, it will be very fast. So we just close this. And as you can see, the data exchange is being created and being processed. And then as soon as it's ready, we can update the IFC file and it will be updated as well. And on the Revit side, it will also be, let me go back to this one. You will also be able to see here that you have a new data exchange version available. You will be able to say upload, update the data exchange, or here you have also the other options to say load the latest or select all the elements. So this will select the entire data exchange. You can view on the web, you can copy the link to the data exchange. So it stays connected to the data exchange on ACC. And now this has been created, and I will just push a new version of the IFC file, and then we will see the data exchange update as well. I hope this answers your question. So great question. What is the major difference or the benefit between using data exchanges and IFC? Is it possible to select the parameters we want to export? As mentioned, not yet. But okay, just before I move on, you can see here that this has been updated to version 2, and you can see here that the data exchange that was created from this IFC file is also being automatically updated. To your question, let me pull out this slide. No, this one. So basically, there are different use cases, and we don't aim to replace IFC or to say data exchange is the better option in every case. So it really depends on what you want to do. We see some cases where people use a data exchange instead of an IFC. For example, if they want to link data that's coming from an IFC or from any other file, and to avoid the IFC way, simply for a couple of things like being able to filter down a subset, at least of the elements. In the future, probably also the data. Of course, you rely on the availability of the data exchange connector. So someone mentioned before Vectorworks. Yes, if someone is using Vectorworks and there is no connector, then obviously a data exchange is not an option. But what is the advantage, or what is the reason why some customers or Revit users tend to use data exchange is simply that, as you have seen, when you have a new IFC file available, then the data exchange will also automatically update. So you remove that manual process of having to export an IFC file manually and then share it with everyone and so on. And it is a little bit more kind of intuitive when you create a data exchange. We say it is what you see is what you get. Of course, you also have the option in Revit when you export, or in any other software, I guess, when you export an IFC file to say export only the elements visible in view. But it's still a little bit different because we really export only the elements visible in view. And with IFC, it also depends on other settings, and IFC also won't use the crop box or the section box to limit the view. So that's also another option or another advantage. Then we also have the fact that the data exchange, if it's loaded into Revit, is visible in the Revit file on the ACC. So it means if you create a Revit file where you link an IFC file, you probably know that if you save that Revit file on ACC, it won't be visible on a Docs if you open it, and the data exchange will be. And then also you don't rely on the desktop connector. So in some workflows, in some situations, you don't have the access to the desktop connector, or you don't want to use the desktop connector for whichever reason. The data exchange workflow does not require the desktop connector. And when it comes to the documentation, it has a little bit a more stable workflow, basically because the elements are loaded into the Revit environment. So you cannot break the link. The elements are here. You are able to remove them to unload the data exchange, obviously, if you don't want to use it anymore, but you don't break the link if you simply move the Revit file somewhere else. And then also, as you can see, all these elements, they are direct shapes. They are not directly editable here. So you are not able to change this wall, for example, because it's only a reference. But as you can see, it is a wall. It is a Revit wall, and you are able to create schedules or tags and sheets and drawings with your regular tools without worrying about some generic models and so on. This is a good one. Are we going to be able to hide those lines in pipes one day? So yes, IFC is tessellating data. IFC is based on the step format, and the current model view definitions rely on that tessellation which you receive. So yes, it is. We are aware of that the pipes are tessellated, but I think that with a data exchange, we are exploring a lot of different possibilities, and that's definitely a topic that is also on our minds for the future. So the geometry, the exported IFC, so we don't export the IFC, Pierre. We basically export the data exchange. I think that's what you mean. And it does contain today the tessellated geometry. There are some explorations. So as mentioned, we do have the .NET SDK, and there is basically a way to send through other data formats than we are doing in these reference workflows. So the connectors we are currently building are focused on the reference workflows. But for example, let me show you on our APS blog. This is a great resource if you are interested in the newest articles on data exchange. I just recommend you to filter for the data exchange API, because we blog way too much across all teams. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find what you're looking for. But for example, here we have this article about Srinsoft, who are also the makers of the BIMDEX tools, plugins, if you have heard of them. They are very sophisticated plugins which allow the transport of native data, for example, between Plant 3D and Revit, Inventor, and other tools. And what Srinsoft is basically doing on top of our .NET SDK is to develop their own connectors where they are able to use their technology from the BIMDEX plugins to create native elements. So I think when it comes to that, what you just mentioned, Pierre, that's exactly what you mean, because basically here, when we create the data exchanges or when we load them, you see the pipes will, these are now the pipes coming from Plant 3D through this connector. They will be even loaded as native Revit families, so you will be able to edit the family and so on. This is still a private beta project, and it's not finished yet. But we hope to have some more news on this by the Autodesk University, which is happening this year in September. So we will definitely keep you posted on that. Does it also work with custom properties, or does it only work for IFC schemas? So no, not 100% sure. So you can definitely, if your IFC has custom properties defined, and we will also convert the custom properties. We are not only converting the PSETs defined by the Building Smart. Is there a way to create data exchanges without a BIM Collaborate license? So you don't need a BIM Collaborate license. You need only the Docs license. However, you are mentioning to save locally, for example. So data exchanges cannot be saved locally. You need the Docs license, so you need access to the Autodesk Docs. And as mentioned, the data exchanges are basically subsets of granular data. They have 0 bytes. They are not files, so you are not able to download them. So they only live on Docs, and you can then access them through the connectors or through the GraphQL API. I would be also interested maybe to know why would you like to download them? Is it for archiving purposes or for some other use cases? So feel free to comment on that. My IFC comes from a Plant 3D project, so a tessellated geometry. Yes, Pierre, I understand, absolutely. So today, unfortunately, this is involving a tessellated geometry, but I think that the BIM decks, the SwinSoft connectors might be really very interesting for you. So let's connect on that. Geometry created in Revit is internally stored as precise BREP geometry. Is that the basis for the IFC data exchange, or is it based on the approximated tessellated representation that is used to display the model in Revit 3D view? So I think there are two topics here, and maybe we are running a little bit of time out of time for that. So when we create the data exchanges, we basically don't go through IFC. We create direct shapes, but they are not the same as the precise Revit geometry, obviously, because they are meant in this case for referencing purposes. But as we have seen with the BIMDEX connectors, we have just shown the possibilities in the SDK are definitely there. So that could be something that we can tackle in a different way in the future. And for example, if you are interested in a specific workflow, you are mentioning here Revit and SolidWorks. That's also something what BIMDEX is currently exploring. So that's definitely something you might also want to check out what we mentioned here. And that is basically like a more advanced version of the connectors for very specific use cases when you need high fidelity data for specific use cases. I can see we have 5 minutes left, so I think that we will be probably responding to some of the questions via email. So Rakesh has already shared our email address. Thanks so much, Rakesh, also for the active support and responding to all the questions. Honestly, I was a little bit worried that we would get less participation, but I can see now that you all have a lot of feedback, and that is really great. Thank you a lot for that. So we will definitely follow up on some of these questions and share these in the follow-up email when we share the recording as well. And I'm just having a look if there was any other urgent or quickly to be answered question, or if there is anyone who would like to unmute their mic and share a question, please feel free to do so. Can you share the link? That was the one when you talk about API, please, or do you understand we will have to get BIMDEX to eliminate? So I will definitely share the link. So this is the BIMDEX link to the blog, and you also mentioned the API. So basically, when you go to our landing page and scroll down, you will see the links for the API and the .NET SDK. So the API is really just a GraphQL API to access the data, and the SDK is the option to basically build your own connectors. And I will definitely send you the links to the recordings of the recent training we had. So this was half a day, like 4 hours training on the GraphQL API, and then also 4 hours on the .NET SDK, where you can get a little bit more insights in how these work and what the possibilities are. And for the moment, yes, for sharing high fidelity data from Plant3D, the SpringSoft BIMDEX connectors are probably the best solution, but that doesn't mean that we want to also be working on a Plant3D connector. So ideally, the vision is that in the future, we might have different connectors for Revit, for Plant3D, and so on, and that some of them will have their strengths, for example, in creating a native geometry or in creating smooth geometry for the referencing purposes, or for some other workflows. So data exchange is definitely intended to be something that grows over time, not only through our development, but also through the partnerships like with SpringSoft in this case, or with hopefully many other partners in the future. So we are almost on top of the hour. Thank you all. It was great to hear all the questions, and expect a summary in the follow-up email along with the recording. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.